Peter Bell is the Executive General Manager of Football of Fremantle. He's been kind enough to join us. Fremantle have certainly been in the news over the last couple of days in regards to Lachie, Schultz and Liam Henry. Belly, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Goss. No problems.
Winning? Did you win out of all of this? I mean, Fremantle fans, I can only go by what I read on socials, not so much where I read in the media or listen to in the media. There seems to be mixed feelings about how you've gone over the last few days. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's fair. Mixed is a good way of describing it. You never like to lose players. Unfortunately, I suppose this is the way the industry is going, where there is a lot more player movement, and so it's never a good feeling when you lose players, particularly a player like Lachie Schultz, who had performed so well and it was an important part of our plans, and it was a great pick by David Walls and his team many years ago at the pick 57, I think. But he wears hard on his sleeve, he plays with passion, and he'll be hard to replace.
He will be. Now, we're seeing this a little bit more now, again, that players want to return for personal reasons, family reasons. When was the first time Lachie Schultz mentioned to you as a football club that for personal reasons and family reasons he wanted to go back to Melbourne?
Oh, yeah, they're not connected, I suppose, in the same conversation, Goss, but as everyone's been involved in footy clubs or even any organisation, you're really strongly aware of the personal circumstances in each and every person's life. So we were aware of that in Lachie and his partner's lives, and we knew there might be a pull back to Victoria for those reasons, but it was only sort of around the start of the trade period that we became aware that, that escalated and circumstances had changed quite quickly and there was a stronger pull back to Victoria. So it was always there in the background, but connecting it to a move back to Victoria in a short time frame, that only came at the start of the sort of trade period.
Morning, Belly. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that you've acquired is for next year's draft. So you're seriously backing in the list that you have right now. Where is the improvement going to come from there, mate, to resurrect what was been a disappointing year?
Yeah, it's a good question, Scotty. And I just think if you look across our squad, and particularly with the age of that squad, we did this exercise yesterday when we had a bit of air time as well. You would hope that there'd be natural improvement in the vast majority of our first 23, if you like, by virtue of, like I said, the age and another pre-season and getting them up into that sweet spot that you need to be in to contend to win finals and really push for the top end of the eight. So we think there's a huge amount of growth and improvement in the majority of our players.
Lachie is obviously a big loss. I love the way he goes about his footy. He's probably my favourite Docker. There was no doubt about that. Who replaces him, Belly? Your forward line is something that you've been tinkering with, and I think you've got it right now. But to lose someone who brings that grunt, that tackling and the pressure and everything that he does, who replaces him?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure you'll get a lot of calls on, particularly from keen Fremantle followers. Look, and all of the points that you've made are absolutely true with Lachie, and I guess that's reflected in what Collingwood were willing to give up for him as well. But it does provide a huge opportunity, and some of those players would include players like Tom Emmett, who we saw a bit of late in 2023. Sam Sturt hopefully gets some continuity with his body, and we've seen him play some really good football at the upper level. And of course, we also have players like Sam Switkowski, Michael Frederick, and Bailey Banfield as well, and all chip in. And it's a wonderful opportunity to take Lachie's minutes in games, and also obviously there's a chance to reboot for a draft as well. And whilst it's unusual for a draftee to come and have the sort of impact that Lachie has had, it can happen as well.
Peter Bell, our guest, Executive GM of Football. We're talking about the trade situation down at Freo. So, Belly, as it stands right now, the indicative draft order, and it can change, of course, but there'll be ups and downs, 34, 46, 16, 64. Don't want to be disrespectful, but are you a player at all in this draft, and is it all about next year?
Oh, you love to have the picks at the top end, that's for sure, Goss. You get I think I heard Tim Lamb talking about it the other day in Melbourne as being very adept at getting right up the pointy end. That's going to be really difficult from 34. But as I started by talking about, Lachie Schultz is a pick at 57, I think their recruiting team have done a wonderful job, particularly in recent times. So we're confident that we'll find a long-term player for us, no matter where we select in the draft. So, they'll get to work, and they've already done a month of work, so hopefully they'll make the right call on draft night.
Have you, as we mentioned just before, a lot of your picks will be future picks. Have you identified players in the draft for next year, or has Wolsey identified players in next year's draft that are of interest and that appeal to you now?
Yeah, teams look ahead a couple of years. Now, draft can change immensely in the last year, and, players can really rocket up the boards or can drop off for whatever reason. But, yeah, we have eyes ahead on future drafts. And also, look, this year's draft is really even after the first sort of 10 or maybe 12 or so. So there were some other reasons why we're happy to sort of trade back and out and amass some future first-round selections. That's not to say, though, that over the next month or so that we won't get to work, and maybe some of those future selections we'll use to push ourselves back up in year's order. That might even happen on draft night. We're really open to seeing what eventuates.
Peter, this is not me saying this.
Oh.
Peter, I want to clarify.
Oh, do you know to say it?
Yeah, because I want to go.
Yeah.
Very true, very true. But I'm going to ask the question and again, this is Fremantle fan feedback. Why is there so many players leaving the club? Some wanting to leave, some being traded out for various reasons. And a lot of people go back to your leadership of a football department. How do you respond to that? And I don't know what that all means, but they're saying that you might be a hard taskmaster, you might drive a hard bargain, you don't mollycoddle players. I don't know. But they're driving it back, not even to your coach. They're going back to you as your role as executive GM of football.
Yeah, that's obviously a fair question to ask. The simple answer and the facts are that we're not an outlier for the competition on the number of players that have left the club over the last 5 or 6 years, or indeed come into the club in the last 5 or 6 years. We are at the upper end, but we're not an outlier to the competition. It sits really comfortably with me, the leadership at the club, whether that's myself or Justin or further up the chain. I think we've got great empathy for players and good connections. Players leave for a number of different reasons, and like I talked about at the start of this conversation, there's a lot of different levers and mechanisms, and players all have their own reasons. Whether that's opportunity, that's usually the number one. Players leave for greater opportunity. Sometimes it can be tied into greater remuneration as well. Others have pull of home. It is different. It's something we constantly look at. What's important for us is that we feel we have a really good nucleus of players who are committed to the club for a long period of time, and from that we think we can really build.
Where are you at with Sean Darcy, and was there any discussion whatsoever about what you could possibly get for him, or not to move him on is probably the wrong word, but get what you could for him, or is it now a matter of locking him in for a extended contract?
Zero discussions, and we're looking to lock Sean in for an extended contract, and things are tracking positively.
There you go. Definitive.
Liam Henry, you loved him, you wrapped your arms around him, you put great mentors around him. He started to deliver what many believe was due, and he goes to St Kilda. I've got concerns about what he does at St Kilda. I've got concerns about Liam Henry in regards to living in Melbourne and not having that network that Fremantle put around him over a long period of time. One, do you have concerns? And two, how much sort of deflated feeling is there around Freo, knowing full well how much you did feed Liam Henry to become the player and the young man that he is today?
It would be for me to say and talk about concerns. That's a matter for Liam, his family, his representation, and they'll make the decisions that they think are best for Liam. I guess at the time when Liam indicated that he wanted to leave Perth and head to Victoria, there was an element of disappointment because of the reasons that you articulated, Goss. A huge amount of work gone into Liam, but worked really hard, and he just got his football to a point where he was starting to deliver really consistent football out there on the wing. So we were disappointed. Obviously, he's off the Saints. And I'm sure he'll give his best to make a strong fist of it.
A lot of list managers and recruiting bosses and footy clubs have had a comment on this, and I'm interested to know your view. If you were sitting in Rowan O'Brien's seat right now, Would you keep pick one from what you know about Harley Reid?
It's not really for me to talk about what West Coast should or shouldn't do. But they've got really experienced people making those decisions. I guess what I would say is they're in no hurry to make any decision at all, so they can just sit back and listen to what other clubs have to say and then make the decision they think is best.
One of our listeners, Noddy, is Fremantle looking at a mature age drafter, i.e. Sean Manor from Werribee? Of course, he's a Michael Barlow product.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who watched the VFL final between Gold Coast and Werribee, Sean was one of the players that stood out, so I'm sure he'll attract some interest. We haven't gone to that level of detail. Well, I certainly haven't. The recruiting team has, and we'll cast our eye over prospective draftees over the next month or so.
Appreciate your time. Are you exhausted already by all of this? You've been. It sounds. I mean, are you?
He's pretty fit, Belly.
No, I know that.
Pretty fit.
Do you get a break straight after the draft, or do you go before the draft? What happens? How do you regenerate your batteries? I know it's pretty. It's all encompassing what you do.
I actually had a couple of breaks. It is fatiguing at times, but it's a great job and really do pinch yourself that you get to work in football. So I'm not complaining at all. It is a massive industry that never really stops or takes a break, but it's a great privilege to be involved and representing Fremantle, and one that I really cherish and I'm thankful for.
Good on you, mate. Appreciate you taking our call today, and all the very best. Are you done? You're not doing any more. You're finished now for the pre-trade period. You're not going to pull a rabbit out of that over the next 24 hours.
Well, you learn not to be surprised, and you never say never. But look, there's still a bit of work that's ongoing around, where your draft selections currently sit, and you just want to sit and listen and talk to other clubs and see whether you might be able to come up with something that's mutually beneficial. But from a player perspective, we think we're done, but we'll just wait and see, and you never really know until deadline.
Good luck getting Logan McDonald next year. Appreciate your time, Belly.
You slipped that in, Josh. No worries, always great to chat. Thanks.